Alright, well, I'm back again. I have three things I'm kind of interested in talking about today. I have several other things I could talk about. There may not be links down below because I've had a crappy day at work and little to no sleep. And the fact that one day it's 70 and the next day it's 40, and that this has been going on has been wreaking havoc with my sinuses. Um, there's like I said, three things I want to cover. I'm not going to talk about the projected both of the runoffs in Georgia going Democrats. I'm not going to directly address that because there's a few other things along that lines I want to address. And this is going to be long enough as is. The first thing I want to talk about is it came across that Biden is anticipated to nominate Merrick Garland as Attorney General. Personally, I don't think that's a bad idea. If you followed me for a while, you know I have actually said when he was supposed up for the run for to replace Scalia, I think it was in 2016, I actually came out and said that he would not be a bad choice. That I actually could get behind him. And I have said that in hindsight, he may have actually been better than some of the choices we've had, some of the actual justices we got. And I'll still stick with that. That Amy Coney Barrett, I'm on the fence with her. So far, of course, there hasn't been a whole lot come out, but what I've seen so far, I think she'll be okay if they actually give her a chance. So I think he would do good in the Attorney General role, even though he's inheriting a giant freaking dumpster fire. There will be more about the dumpster fires in Washington, D.C. here very shortly. January 6th, 2021, if anyone's wondering. Yeah, January 6th, 2021. And you thought 2020 was crazy. The second thing I want to talk about, I think it was Justin Amash, however you pronounce his name, I don't know. I probably heard it pronounced. I don't remember it. I'm bad with names anyway. I believe it was he who made this little statement about Georgia was essentially a referendum on Trump and the Trumpers and everything else, and not, the Republicans shouldn't be backing them. I disagree. The whole reason why Donald Trump got elected the first, to begin with, was a referendum on the Republican Party. Because they had the perception of being stale swamp creatures, for lack of a better term, who only represented conservative ideals when Democrats were in charge. Because that's more or less the situation. Now, I'm not going to say that there wasn't a referendum on Trump in Georgia. There's no doubt in my mind there was one. But I don't think he was the primary reason for the losses, or at this time projected losses that may have changed in the last few minutes I don't know. What I think was actually on the referendum in Georgia was the Republican Party. Let's face it. It's 2021, and y'all, if you think back to the 2020 election, all they wanted to talk about was Reagan. That's all they've talked about in my lifetime. Who's the most like Reagan? Reagan, Reagan, Reagan. They are basically building the party on 30 to 40-year-old ideals. From a man who was a New Deal Democrat who said the Democrat Party left him behind, he did not leave it. Let that sink in. And their PR. Not only is the Republicans stuck, not only are they stuck in the 80s, but their PR is basically the same. They do not know how to reach and interact with people, especially, like your millennials and whatnot. They don't know how to reach them, how to interact with them. They don't know how to do that. They do not know how to cultivate new Republicans. They're relying on the silent majority of the 80s. And a lot of those people have died out. And that is a problem for the Republican Party. They are treating themselves, or basically they're leading themselves into extinction. And the fact that, if you want proof of this, if you look at last week, what Mitch McConnell said when it came to this Roner stimulus checks. He said, I'm not going to give them any more money. Now, I can believe he means like your special interest groups. That it's possible that's what he means. Your big multi-trillion and billion-dollar corporation, mainly multi-billion-dollar corporations, and other countries. I could see him meaning that. But his way of formulating the argument made it seem very much like a Marie Antoinette situation. Right now, the people are suffering. They're wondering if they're going to have a home, food, car, a job. Even I am dealing with the fact that my particular job could go away once the next quarter, or in the next few weeks, when the next round of financials, I think it's the fourth quarter financials, come out. That's a reality for a lot of people. So, and I know part of that, there's a lot to blame. There's blame enough to go around on this, because do I think China misrepresented what was happening? Yes. The World Health Organization, do I think they were giving bad advice? Yes. Do I think Fauci was giving bad advice? Given the number of times I've seen him giving a serious press conference, and he had the same smirk he did when he was saying, "Oh, don't worry, kids, Santa is wearing a mask and had his vaccine." When he has that same smirk going on, Fauci definitely, no, he's not trustworthy. And let's face it. You probably had a lot of people surrounding Trump who had their own political agendas, if you will. Probably we're telling him a bunch of random crapola just to see his little mind run with it. So they could have a laugh. I could see stuff like that too. But I don't see why there was any need to completely shut down the economy. If we had approached it intelligibly, provided good information from the get-go, we would be better off today than we actually are in the current reality. And that's just my opinion. The last thing I want to talk about is why I'm not necessarily discussing the election in Georgia is it's kind of heavy-handed to talk about the loss of the Senate. When protesters have busted down the door of the Senate chambers. There may not be a U.S. I'm not trying to be a propagandist or anything. But it almost seems like in the back of your mind, if you're not wondering, is there not going to be some sort of revolution where the Senate as we have known it will not exist? The United States government as we have known it will exist. Because tensions have been growing in this country for a very, very long time. It's led to like your BLM riots, for lack of a better term, because that's what they were, burning of buildings and things like that. And now this is the pendulum swinging back to the other side. And we did it to ourselves. Think of all the times where it's been, you've heard, oh, if the Republicans win it, we're all going to doom and despair. And the Republicans go, if the Democrats get it, we're doom and despair. They have done, for my life, as long as I can remember, they have pitted us against one another. Decades of it. And what we are seeing now is the full manifestation of that, of decades of politicians pitting us against one another, dividing and conquering. The problem is you have people mainly on the left who are pissed off about certain things and ready to gear up and fight. You have people on the right who are pissed off and geared up and ready to fight. There's been giant powder kegs on both sides for years. And it's been growing bigger and bigger and more unstable. Kind of like dynamite. And right now, I believe a match has actually been lit and thrown on it. I don't know if it will peter out this time, or if it's going to blow to kingdom come. I don't. I do know that if something is not done, it will only be a matter of time until the powder kegs fully blow. And when I say this, I'm not trying to be an alarmist. Granted, I have had, my grandmother told me for about as long as I can remember that there will be war in the United States. It will not be in my lifetime, but it will be in yours. She was telling me that by the time I was like 4 or 5. I'm 33 now, and of course she passed away in 2010. But in that time, I heard it so many times. And at this point in time, with what I'm seeing, I don't think it's avoidable. There might be compromises that will put a Band-Aid over it. But that's just putting a Band-Aid over it and not addressing the problem, which is going to be your partisan politics that have literally been trying to polarize us and pit us against one another. That's not being addressed. And anything, like I said, anything you do would just be putting a Band-Aid on it. And I don't see a way around it. I'm afraid to say I do not know if I see a way around it. So the Georgia runoffs may be irrelevant. Hell, I'll just throw in the whole election. 2020 elections may be irrelevant, be made irrelevant. I don't know. All I do know is, consider me Switzerland. I'm neutral and staying the heck out of it. Leave me be, and there will be no problems with me. That's how I'm going to put it. I don't like it. I don't want it. But I am afraid that is where we are headed. And we did it to ourselves. And ultimately, I do think we deserve it. The bad part is, a lot of the people who have stoked the fires that ultimately have got us where we are, they're not going to be the ones that ultimately feel any type of pressure from it. They're not going to be hurt by it. Chances are they're going to be just fine. It's going to be the people like you and myself that will bear the burden and bear the cost. And that is a very sobering thought. This is getting a bit long-winded even for me. Like I said, I don't think I'll have any links below. I might change my mind. I don't know. But let me know what you think.